Remembering that experience for me is it's weird. I can remember distinctly 3 things, really. I remember seeing the water come and push Burnell in. Sight for me was taken away totally because I was underwater and I couldn't see anything, but I could feel everything. My eyes were open because I could feel the stinging of the salt water in my eyes, on my face, like everywhere. All my other senses were heightened except my eyesight because I guess my body knew I couldn't rely on it, especially in the water. I could feel water, violent water, all over my body, like trying to take me in every single direction. I remember feeling really sharp rocks, and I assumed that was when I was going over the side of the ledge, just kind of tumbling over the rocks and all the water pushing me onto the rocks and pulling me away from the rocks. And then I remember feeling like I was floating by myself in a really, really deep pool. I finally came up for air, and then my sight came back to me. I could see my mom. I remember her clutching Sienna and screaming at me, and I was like, what's going on? And then it all kind of comes back to you again and stuff, and I finally made sense of what she was saying. She was saying, swim, Fressie, swim, swim that way. She was like pointing, swim that way. I kept swimming and kicking and going under and coming up and gasping for breath. I knew I was really, really tired, but I also knew that I didn't want to die. I remember riding the wave up to the top, up to the crest of the wave, and seeing down below me the reef where I could stand up. And so I was like, I have to get there. I have to get there, and then I can be okay. I kicked and flailed my arms, to try and get there. And I remember hitting more sharp rocks, but I realized, oh, the sharp rocks mean I can stand. And so I hit the sharp rocks. I did a little bit more paddling and stuff, and before I knew it, I was on my hands and knees starting to stand up, and I could see my dad maybe 100 yards back running towards me and just saying Fressie, I'm over here. Previous to this, I haven't really spent this much time remembering it or retelling it. I can remember things so clearly. It's the images in my mind are so clear. The feelings are so sharp. And then having to edit it myself, I think it's given me an opportunity to think of it outside of my box that I put it in. Think of it outside of my own experience, kind of look at it as an outside party. When you're down there in the trenches, it feels like this is the end. It hurts, it's painful, but when you come out of it, hopefully you've learned something good and something that you can take with you for the rest of your life. That day, I felt like I tapped into a hidden kind of strength. In that context, obviously it was life or death. So that choice had to be made. But I've applied that kind of thing, I feel, to the rest of my life, in that you can get through things that are tough. You can get through traumatic experiences and come out on the other side having learned something new about yourself that you never thought you would have.
All the time as we were working on the book and leading up to this final departure to Boron, California, he kept saying, "Don't worry, Kathy, before I leave, I'm going to drop a bombshell." Kind of a bombshell. I'll drop a bombshell. The power went out And we couldn't leave the office because we didn't remember, we don't know what's on. And we had to wait until the power came back on so we could shut down whatever was still on. And standing there just waiting and waiting. He'd already left, waiting and waiting and waiting. And Madeline called again. He said he's on his way. He's on his way. He already left the office. And within a few minutes, the power went on, and there was, that the lights come on, all the machines come on, and right at that moment, a policeman came through the door. Shock, shock, shock. Holy mackerel, this guy comes through the door. His radio is going, the lights, and everything is going off at once. It's like, holy mackerel, what's going on? And he said, where's the senator? Where's the senator? The senator's not here. She's at home. She's at her house. And he said, we have to get a hold of her. There's been a shooting. Somebody shot the governor. He says, no, ma'am, apparently he shot himself. Talk about numbness. And for me, it was like cold. So that's what you meant. And that was the bombshell. He shot himself. Angry. I was really angry. Sad, shocked, and angry. It's like, how could you do this? How could you? This is the bombshell? This is the bombshell? What good does it do us? Anger. And then I got all kinds of calls that, when I got home from people concerned, are you okay? Are you okay? My sisters, my cousins, they all called from the States. Are you okay? We just heard, are you okay? I'm fine. Then around midnight, I got a phone call from, sounded like a howly voice, male. And it was bad. He said the fucker got what he deserved, and hung up. I was like, that's it? That's what you wanted to say? Okay, you said it. Doesn't do me any good nor harm, but I guess you got it off your chest. But that's what he said. And then the next morning, that's when I, up to this time, I didn't cry or anything, it was just shock. But the next morning, I opened the newspaper, and there it was, Bordallo dead. I half expected the phone to ring, and for him, because every morning he would call me to find out what the newspaper say, what's in the newspaper. It's like, did they buy a newspaper? Because he didn't want to buy a newspaper. I'm not going to buy the newspaper, because that's his protest. I didn't lose it until that following morning when, the headline said Bordallo dead, and I expected the phone to ring and for him to say, so what's in the paper? It's like, you would know what's in the paper. That's when I lost it. Just lost it. Sadness, like, that was your thought flash. That was a nightmare. That was a nightmare.
Laura Thompson, when she came in the 30s, was able to touch base with my dad because my dad had a series of articles on fishing for the Guam Recorder. Laura Thompson described my father as a professional fisherman. He could tell what kind of fish to catch in certain spot from Rahan down to Umatic. From that associate awareness, she challenged my dad to write the village journal of her book, Guam and His People. And then, right after the war, this was around 46, 47, these men started coming in by the truckloads. Why were these the admirals, the generals, the captains in the Air Force? Ernie Pyle, a journalist in the Second World War, or Forrestal were coming into Marisa because Laura Thompson would tell them that when they come to Guam to go to beautiful South to visit my dad, Jesus Cruz Barcinas. And being of school age, I hardly see who was coming in. On Ernie Pyle, it was after I got back from college, and in a newspaper article, which my dad was interviewed, there was a picture of Ernie Pyle holding my youngest sister across the street from us with about 5 other girls and boys from this neighborhood. And then my dad opened up and told me about Ernie Pyle. In fact, when I went through the pictorial biography of Ernie Pyle, that happened to be the last picture he had with a group of civilians in that book before he was killed in Okinawa. Forrestal happened to be the first Secretary of Defense. I knew that he was on island because a newspaper would be the Navy newspaper would be delivered to my dad, and I would open it and saw that he was coming. But I didn't know that he was coming to Marisa. When his landing craft opened up by the pier, I remember the picture of MacArthur getting out of a landing craft. He got out of that small barge and he walked to shore. And instead of walking toward Yamadak, he turned right to this area. And there was only one reason why he was turning in this direction, and that was to see my dad. I am now saying publicly that this is a very historical site. Arlene Kosmigay na hinanaw sa moro para ofan masangan lagos migay loke na hinanaw sa moro pudiwan tauto sumisya dyan sinenti. Ja sinente ko pa ako no sinenten Corazon Tadong sana panente so niyo sanga naman malupan. Lanita continua.